What is going on, everyone? Rookie SDR here, and I'm with a longtime friend, individual, Paul Brucker. Hey, Paul, welcome to the show. How's it going today?
Hey everyone, how you doing? How you doing, Franklin? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, for sure. Right now, down here in Lima, Peru, you've been here, right? It's
Oh
quite
yeah,
hot right now, so
I know
yeah,
Lima,
we're
Peru very well.
we're definitely gonna get to that. Where are you located right now?
Yeah, so I live in the South Florida area. I'm actually working at home today. I live in Boca Raton, Florida, which is about an hour or so north of Miami, Florida, where our office is located.
Oh, nice. And are you have been living in Florida all your life, or were you actually what were you raised actually?
Yeah, so let me just kind of go into it. My backstory. So I'm originally from the Detroit suburbs in the great state of Michigan.
Nice.
I went out to school on the west side of Michigan, small Christian college called Hope College, played 4 years of football there, had a blast. I don't know why, but I majored in chemistry and communications, double major. And kind of with those two credentials, I didn't really know what I was going to be doing after graduation. And it was really like my college advisor, given my sports background, given my science background, he advised me to go into either pharmaceutical sales or medical device sales. I gravitated towards medical device sales. I actually went to kind of like a short, intense 6 week educational program called Medical Sales College, where I
Mm-hmm.
learned kind of like tricks and techniques and to sell to surgeons, specifically in the operating room. So my first job out of college in 2000, the fall of 2013, was with Integra, and I sold spinal fusion products for spinal fusion surgeries to neuro and orthopedic surgeons.
Wow.
It was
Awesome.
a crazy ride. I did that for a little over 3 years. Quite a different type of sale that I'm doing kind of currently in the tech software world. Definitely a lot different with what an SDR would do. A lot of it was kind of managing relationships. I worked with maybe 4 or 5 different surgeons in my territory in Metro Detroit, very consultative, really had to be an expert. And I was besides, doing like office lunches and all that jazz, I was in the operating room really giving instructions on how to use the devices, what size implants we should use, what kind of technique we should use in some circumstances. So it's very stressful. I was actually on call as well about, 24/7. And really after 3 years, I got completely burnt out. It was a great career, great learning experience, but I definitely didn't want to do that for the rest of my life. And really before that point in my life, I've never really traveled before.
I
So
think
I
that's how
actually
you made your transition into South America, right? I remember you telling
exactly.
me here when you were here in Peru, you were telling me about your background and
Mhm.
and how you were kind of burned out. You know, like I just came here in South America, and one thing just kept leading to another to a different type of venture. And I think that's how you and became very close friends, right? And as well as like to a certain point, we were business partners as well to a degree. And yeah, so well, how was your adventure down here in South America, actually?
Yeah, so really, I didn't really know how to speak Spanish. I can't really speak it that well, but I can kind of get by at it like an intermediate level. But I decided to go to Lima, Peru, really because it was on the coast. Fun city. Peru's an amazing country with, all these different regions you could travel to. Amazing food in Lima, and it just felt like the easy choice. My plan was to kind of the game plan going down there was to make money and kind of get myself by was to teach,
Yeah.
business English to various professionals. After a year or so living there, Franklin and I met through some mutual friends. We hit it off right away. Really became best friends, right? And then,
Yeah,
we
for
kind
sure.
of referred each other clients. I had, friends that visited. Franklin gave tours to. Franklin knows everyone in Lima, so he definitely, hooked me up with plenty of uh, plenty of eager business English learners to keep my schedule full. So it was
Yeah,
amazing in all ways.
I remember after that, like after your short time here in Lima, Peru, you found love, of course, and now you're married, which is awesome, by the way. Congratulations. But then
Thank you.
you wanted to transition into something different, and then I believe you went. One of your first jobs was within a tech company. Could you give us a little bit of description about that?
Yeah, of course. So moving back, well, kind of skipping over some stuff. Met a girl named Jackie. We fell in love. We decided to, to eventually kind of move back to the U.S. and, wanna when we landed in the U.S. and we were starting to settle down together, and I was looking for jobs. I definitely didn't want to go back into the medical field, and just really through research online, soul searching, it really appeared that the tech scene was really where I wanted to be. Um, Miami and the South Florida area was definitely kind of still exploding at that time, like new companies. My first kind of sales gig in the tech world and where, I became an SDR for the first time was a company called Motion Point. And Motion Point sold website translation, SaaS and services and the translations themselves. Um, to very big, Fortune 500 enterprise clients to all the way down to kind of the mid market as well.
Yeah, and I think that's where you started off, like your first, you
hmm
became an SDR, and then I believe you became an account executive after that. But I always like to ask, like, how was your first 100 dials whenever you were first getting on the phone again? Of course, you're coming back from experience as well that you were doing dials, but now moving into a new industry, a new territory. How was your first 100 dials?
Yeah, that's a great question. It was a big transition. It was something that I wasn't used to. I was used to kind of chilling in the operating room, driving a lot, going to all these offices, knocking on doors, and instead, I could knock on 100 doors in one day, but they had to be phone calls. So it took a lot of getting used to. A few things. One thing that I noticed, I mean, if you make a cold call, the probability of that person answering is probably around like 5%. So you really got to make about 20 dials to have like a real conversation with someone. And one of the few things I struggled with immediately was being ready at all times to have like your concentration like set because you don't know when they'll pick up. You don't know who's going to pick up. So once they do, you got to be like ready to go. Like, hey, John, how's it going? Like, you got to be ready. You can't fall flat. And I think that's where kind of the most people lose the cold call is within like the first, 10 or so seconds when they don't like grab their attention and just get on with it. And I think like the second thing that was really important to me was to have kind of like a set script, not so much a script, but like a guideline, like almost like a funnel of like how you're going to start the conversation, like how you're going to grab their attention.
Yeah.
What are the good questions that you're going to ask to really drive value in that conversation, to get them intrigued about, what you're inquiring about. Really having a solid value proposition and really being able to ask for the meeting and get that time on the calendar when you're on the phone with them.
Yeah, for
Um,
sure. And
mhm.
I think one of the biggest things as far as SDRs goes is the fact that, getting that meeting, like whether that was either cold calling, and as you mentioned, you were going to door to door, selling, but this aspect of social selling, like through LinkedIn and cold email, like how was your approach on that angle?
Yeah, so luckily, they had basically a prospecting automated solution in-house. They actually started with a sales loft, and then they built actually something through Salesforce themselves for better data keeping or whatever. Not really sure why they switched over, but it was good to have that structure. So the company policy was to put in like a 15-day cadence. Day one was an email, day two was a phone call, day three was LinkedIn, day four was a follow-up email, day five was another voicemail, and then kind of like within that same spirit, 2 additional weeks. And I found, especially if you're not able to like go and visit them and actually stand in front of them and try and get that meeting that way, if you're kind of doing it digitally, I would definitely recommend doing that trifecta, sending them an email because responsibility as a employee is they have to monitor the email. They have to know what's in their inbox. Two is a phone call. Um, it's hard to ignore like one call, it's hard to ignore, or it's easier to ignore a phone call and one voicemail, but if you kind of keep going through it over like a week by week period, they're going to start paying attention. And then three, the LinkedIn. Everyone's on LinkedIn. You could really customize it to, make it yourself, your own personal brand, and kind of put a face to the names. And then that gives them ability to, check out your profile, check out, whatever company you're working for. It's like, okay, let's see what this is about with them. So I would say definitely that the trifecta works the best.
And Paul, and then later on, you move from an SDR to becoming an account executive. And I wouldn't say it's an SDR's dream, but as an SDR advocate myself, like I believe like a lot of SDRs want to become executive. That's one of the main goals, right?
Hmm.
As far as starting the role. Like, were you excited? Were you doing more dials, or were you kind of just waiting on your SDR to kind of bring you in the leads, or how was that transition from SDR to an account executive?
Yeah. So when I transitioned, there wasn't really at the time I was working at, my first company in tech, there wasn't any open account executives positions. There was another, local South Florida company that kind of picked me up as an account executive. And that was more, of the full sales cycle, which was very valuable to me. They had a lot of inbound leads, but then maybe I would have three, four, five meetings a day, but there was certainly enough time, and they definitely had the resources internally as well, um, for me to make dials, go after new companies, and try and close out business. Um,
Yeah, for
Unfortunately, I've
sure.
never had an SDR work for me yet, but maybe one day.
No, I think I think you have the
Yeah.
hustle and the drive, right, to do it
Hmm.
yourself and the whole full cycle. That's awesome, actually. Maybe one day we can both work in the same company, or who
Yeah.
knows, start our own company, right? So moving on
Yeah.
into, now you're become the director of business development for Nucleus Research. Now, first of all, congratulations and kudos to
Thank
you on
you.
that one. That's
Hmm.
awesome. Like, so what specifically is it that you guys do, or could you, give us a little bit of the elevator pitch in a sense?
Sure. So Nucleus Research is a global provider of ROI-focused technology research and advisory services. So basically what that means is we cover extensively a lot of different spaces in the software, the technology world. I would say, our main focus areas are CRM, human capital management, workforce management, supply chain planning, ERP, very enterprise focused solutions like that. On an ongoing basis, we have research reports called value matrices, where it's basically a buyer's guide. There's a big graphic. We rank everyone against each other. All the vendors have different profiles, but probably what our bread and butter is, and what we're most known for, are assets called ROI case studies, and that is really kind of a research report that really highlights one single deployment of a solution, and really what the return on investment was, and purchasing that solution, what was the payback period, the lessons learned, why did they choose that solution over the competition. Basically what that means is a lot of our customers are able to kind of leverage, commission those reports, leverage those assets, to help their marketing teams, drive more leads, and help their sales teams close more deals.
Awesome. That's awesome. And just for SDRs out there, because I'm pretty sure you have gotten a lot of social sell and emails and LinkedIn, right? What does a director of business development do actually? Like, what is your daily life like as far as in your role goes?
So my company, my position is probably a lot different than a traditional software company. Being kind of an analyst firm, a research firm, we go things um, we go about things a little bit differently than what you would expect. But basically, I'm responsible for managing accounts, bringing in business, giving kind of best practices to my team, and really just be a helping hand wherever I can to help the company, and more importantly, help my accounts that I manage.
Yeah, and it's cool how you mentioned that, to help out my team, right?
Yeah.
As you know that, as I think as me and you both know, we always have these discussions. We're always seeing some LinkedIn influencers, especially like sales leaders, right? Always posting
Yep.
about, like, the SDR world, like where's it going, this the new tactics that's happening. So, in your own perspective, after being in various different roles and just various different companies, like, what is it that you think where the SDR role is heading to in the next, what, let's say 1 year or two?
Yeah, really, really good questions. I would say, so I was like right in the middle of the pandemic and seeing that switch, and I'm sure a lot, um, kind of like the account executives now, or the people who've kind of graduated from the SDR role now has gone through that transition, but the SDRs who are coming in right now haven't experienced that at all. So it's a totally new landscape in like uncharted waters that we're going into. A couple things what I noticed is right now it's very difficult unless you have the cell phone number. It's very difficult to get people on the phone because why? Because a lot of people just really don't have office phones anymore. They don't really need them. If you need to get a hold of me, you could send me an email and we could set up just like a video call like this, or internally, like you could Slack me.
Yeah.
So like getting cell phone numbers is super important. So I think a lot of SDRs right now are leveraging um, email, and it's very difficult to stand out on email. So I think video prospecting is going to be huge in the next 4 to 5 years. Something you do well, Mr. Rookie SDR. Um, kind of putting yourself out there, showing your personality, being memorable. I think I think that's kind of it's going to be the key to kind of cut through the noise is to have people remember who you are. I think video is going to be a very powerful way to do that, and then you could leverage that. You could send the videos over via email, and you could send them over via LinkedIn. So I think, the phone is always going to be important, but you're not always going to have the right phone number for that person. But you're always going to be able to send them an email, and most likely they're going to have a LinkedIn account. I would say if I could give advice in where the industry is going, that would be it.
Awesome. And two things that you mentioned. One, video. So actually, if I was to prospect you, I'll probably go like, hey, with that, this will be my thumbnail with your name,
Yep.
right, Paul Brucker, and I'll try to say something along the lines of, try to get some time with you, see what we're doing. So yes, I
Mhm.
do agree that the video prospecting is going, like, it's gonna evolve like sooner than later because
Right.
it's you should have part of that of your cadence, right? And the other thing you
Hmm.
mentioned is about like finding the numbers, right? It's quite difficult now.
Yep.
There are many companies out there that can find the leads, but some of the numbers are just not reliable, right? And I do
Right.
agree to that. So many sales leaders out there as well, they have this argument about cold calling, right? It's in
Yep.
your perspective, do you think cold calling is dead? In my honest opinion, I do not think cold calling is dead at all. I think we have actually more information on our prospects for making our cold callings a little bit easier. You can say that's kind of like a warm call. It just varies, right? But I believe cold calling is not dead in general. But I would like to hear your opinion on that.
Yeah, so there was a little bit of drama on LinkedIn recently. This is like the end of February 2022, if you don't have the date in front of you. I don't know exactly who it was, but someone pretty much called out like all SDRs, like their cold emails and their cold calls on, and specifically Kyle Coleman, VP
Hmm.
of Revenue Growth and Enablement at Clary, saying like this whole thing is ridiculous, that we should really only be focusing on inbound marketing. So you could, his hypothesis was, well, you could just take, all the salaries from the SDRs and you could just put it more into the marketing budget and try and, generate more digital leads that way. Um, in my experience, an inbound lead is a lot more hot and ready to buy than an outbound lead. The problem with that is all companies, they have some sort of, whether they have funding or really just trying to pay the bills, they have to get money now. And then when you spend marketing dollars and kind of put it out there, you don't know when you're going to get that ROI back. So you really need. I don't see how a company can operate without a team of people who are at the very least reaching out into kind of their ideal customer profile out into the marketplace and trying to proactively find people, kind of pushing the envelope. Um, I would say even though right now it's very difficult to get phone numbers and probably the connect rate on a cold call is lower than it used to be. But once you have someone on the phone and you're speaking to them and they're interested, it's better than sending an email. It's better than sending a voicemail because you could communicate, engage with them live, like right at that second. So I don't, as long as people have cell phones, cold calling is not going to be dead. I think there's going to have to be greater investments made in getting quality phone numbers. And that brings up, if those are going to be cell phone numbers, that brings up a lot of issues on, privacy and what have you. But I mean, I still use the phone every day. I know a lot of people who are still in SDR roles are still using the phone. I really don't think it's going anywhere.
No, for sure, and I agree to that for certain. And I actually have an example. When way before my SDR role, way before I reached out to you, actually, which we're gonna get that in a minute. Yeah, I used to go to like small parks around here and find tourists when I was giving out tours, and they never heard from me, they never saw my
Right.
face, I never sent an email, no nothing, right? No
Yep.
marketing or anything. And I went and I got like 10 people's attention, and I gave them tours, and they'll take my tour, and if they liked it, they'll pay me for it. If not, that's fine. But I use that example because I think just
Mm.
because we're moving into a digital era and because we're in tech, right, it doesn't mean people still don't want that human touch. So I believe we don't necessarily know when you call somebody and what they have going on. Maybe they were thinking of a solution, right? Even though it's not in paper, but they were thinking about it. They haven't told their team members. But and someone just calls out of the blue and tells them like they have an awesome solution for them for their problem that they didn't even thought they were thinking about, mentioning to the teams. Like, why not? That's awesome, right? So those are
Mhm.
situations that you do not know you're gonna encounter, especially when you're calling somebody just out of the blue. And so yes, I do agree the cold calling is not dead, right? Um, and another thing that I want to mention is that how did I get myself, into the SDR world? Actually, you were one of my mentors and still are to this day. You and many others, right? I reached out to you and you told me about the SDR world, where it
Cold
goes
hard
to.
truth. Yep.
Yes, and and I think we need that sometimes. I think we need that the cold hard truth, as you mentioned,
Yep.
because whenever I was getting into the SDR world, they painted to me as in like an easy thing. Just sit there and you just like look, send some numbers, you just call people. You got a lot of information about them, but in hence it's not like that. I remember dialing 100 numbers and it was hard. And I remember calling you and be like, I don't know what to do. Like I don't know if I'm in the right company or not. Um,
Yep.
so yeah, saying all that, what is your best advice that you could give, after being in the industry for so long, to new SDRs, rookie SDRs, or people just wanting to get into, software sales, or in the tech world in general?
Mhm.
Like, what could you tell them right now if you could?
Yeah, so and you really alluded to it. You really have to reach out for help. It's a very complex industry. Things are changing all the time. Whether it's like, and I did this as well, whether it's like getting a job, you need to, have people kind of mentor you, know what the best companies are to find, what to say during the interview process, how to kind of pitch yourself. You really need to make the first sale to get the job. And then once you're at the company, which is probably even more important, you need to figure out who's doing really well, like who are the key players, who really knows how to book these meetings, and you got to buddy up to them, and then whether it's you go, oh, this is different when I was in the office, but I did this at my first SDR role. I basically, became best friends with the guy and really learned as much as I could from him, and it really paid off in the end.
Yeah.
And then you don't have to do that with just one person. You could, pick several people, and then, kind of take bits and pieces of like what they do well, and then kind of mold your skill set and like your approach and how you go after it, to something that's comfortable with you.
Yeah, that's awesome actually. Basically, as you mentioned, ask for help, right? Reach out to people, like make that outreach because that's one of our part of our jobs, right? To make that outreach, to make us ourselves stand out, just as you mentioned earlier as well. Yeah, Paul, this conversation we could take this so far, right? But it's been awesome, and I know it's short time, and it's just you beginning of the week, and you got things to do as well. It was a pleasure having you, Paul, and looking forward to seeing more, and learning from you a little bit more
Of
throughout this
course.
coming years. And yeah,
Yeah.
man, it was awesome. Thank you so much for having me. And one last thing is, if any SDRs or anyone just wants to get in contact about your company, or if not, they're trying to reach out to you for some advice, how can they contact you?
Yeah, I think a lot of people reach out to me via LinkedIn. I'm always on there, so feel free to shoot me like a connection request and just say something like, "Hey, I saw you on the Rookie SDR show. Wanted to connect." But then if you want to DM me any questions, really anything, I'm very responsive on there.
Awesome. Well, everyone, thank you so much for joining again for the second episode of the Rookie SDR. And we'll be looking forward to seeing you next time. And let's see who will be in the hot seat. Have a good one.
Thanks, man.